Welcome to Apica ZebraTester. We're specialists when it comes to application performance and scalability. Whether it's testing seasonal e-commerce peaks, popular episodic content from your favorite TV shows, to the everyday load experienced internally to your business applications. Apica's solution around scalability, availability, and performance enables companies to become more proactive and identify issues before they impact your business. Now, if you're familiar with load testing, you may know that the process can be broken up into several major components. First being scripting, which traditionally incurs a lot of man-hours to prepare your load test scripts, but this doesn't have to be the case with Apica. Preparing scripts with Apica ZebraTester is a codeless experience from an all point-and-click interface. But if you really want to be able to code, we have the ability to allow for you to do that too with inline scripts. The next component being load generation. And we're flexible here as well. Along with a simple pricing model, we have our own cloud infrastructure that you can leverage as a software as a service solution, but also have the ability to bring our load agents behind the firewall for your network if you're testing with sensitive information. Now, once you're done running the tests, you'll want to report on them. Based on our experience with many different application types, we bring important visualizations to your teams, whether high-level overviews showing the overall impact against the applications, error-level details during runtime, or the ability to mix and match your own visualizations. And the final component, looking towards the future, will be continuous integration and continuous deployment. Many IT organizations are looking to automate as much of their testing as possible, and with Apica's REST APIs, we allow integration with the most popular CI/CD tools out there, like your Jenkins, TeamCity, AWS Code Pipeline, and many others. So for Apica, we break out these components of load testing into a couple segments in our products. First being Apica ZebraTester, and the other being our Apica Load Test portal. ZebraTester is our codeless scripting tool where you can easily record user experience, whether that's in a browser, over an application on a mobile device, check-in kiosks, IoT, Rokus, Apple TVs, or Xboxes. We can also easily convert other types of scripts that you may have in your testing libraries, such as Selenium, JMeter, LoadRunner, HAR files, and more. You can do this because ZebraTester picks up all the network traffic coming from your application servers to serve the applications to your users. Whether the application is served by a complex microservices architecture or a monolithic application stack, the experience to record a load test is as simple as pressing record and going through the user experience. Then once you have that recording, then to identify any dynamic content that's being served to the user. And you can use our nifty variable finder within ZebraTester for that. And it's going to find that, whether that's a session ID or a token or a series of usernames and passwords that'll need to come from an input file like a CSV. Ultimately, once that script is recorded, you'll need to upload and share that with members of your team, and that can be done on Apica Load Test portal. Here's where we design the other half of our load test, and that's going to be the load generation profile, which is just as important as the script that we design in ZebraTester. Within the new test setup wizard in Apica, you can design any type of load test profile. From here, after you design the test, from the portal you can monitor the execution or view complete reports generated by the load test. Here is also where we integrate with popular APM solutions like your AppDynamics, Dynatrace, or New Relic. And if you're using another APM tool out there, we're very flexible in our abilities to tag our transactions for use with other APMs. So to recap, ZebraTester is a local testing tool where we can build and record our scripts, but also validate them, since ZebraTester client is also a small load generator itself. So we can validate script iterations through unique users hitting the application before uploading to the portal. And Apica Load Test portal is really the meat and potatoes of the solution, where we can manage load tests as projects containing scripts, groups of tests, and integrations and reporting related to those. Now, on the topic of the portal, I want to talk about the Apica infrastructure that we can run the load tests from. So this is our global monitoring and testing footprint. The green dots are going to be our monitoring nodes. We have quite a global presence in over 85 countries around the world. But we also have over 50 load test clusters, mainly focused in the US and Europe. But I want to point out here that we're flexible in the way that we can allocate load test clusters for your testing. So looking at this map, it would be very easy for us to augment a location in India to provide that testing footprint for you to run your tests. Speaking of our flexibility, I also want to talk about our deployment options. Now, I've talked about our subscription SaaS portal, but I haven't really talked about our professional services team. Our professional services team is full of experienced performance engineers who've tested an array of applications and can help you with scripting, applying load against your application, helping you analyze results, and sharing the scripts and enabling you to carry that testing forward. Our goal is to have your teams proficient enough to also be running load tests on their own from the portal. And beyond our professional services, our flexibility also ranges into the way that we can run tests internally in your environment or externally from AWS or Apica's infrastructure. With that, let's transition to the load test portal and walk through some testing results. So from here, I'm going to create a test in our portal using the new test wizard. Here, I have already uploaded a ZebraTester file and applied a preset. And in that preset, I have an example stress test where I'm ramping up from 50 users up to 800 users, doubling the user count in every test iteration. And building a test, these are actually individual load tests that are actually collected together, and these are all going to be reported and rolled up to one test instance. And that's how we're going to manage the results in the portal. From a hierarchy level, you have the individual load tests. Those can belong to a test instance, and you can have multiple instances belonging to a project. I can add tests here. So for example, if I wanted to double this again and bring test up to 1600 users, I can do that here. Next, I'd select a location that I'm running from. Right now, I'm running from a cluster that I've picked out, Miami, Los Angeles, and New York. Also, if you have a local load generator correlated with your account, it's going to show up here, just like we have a private agent with this plus sign in one of the regions that we have set. Going beyond that, we have the ability to modify the input files going into a test, whether these are input text files or fields that we want to identify the host name that we're testing against. Say we're testing against a QA host name or a test host name, we'd be able to modify that right here from the scenario options. The other thing that I think is really powerful, especially from a load test, is the ability to do client-side monitoring. So with our ability to do browser monitoring with our synthetic monitoring product, we can also bring that into the load test. So alongside, say, a 100-user load test, that 100-user load test can be probably somewhere between 101 to 105 users as we kick off browser monitoring alongside the load test. So while the system is saturated with that load, we can collect the user experience as well, along with screenshots and the waterfall of what the page loads look like. Coming down here, we also have our own performance monitoring agents as well. Those are going to be sysstat or perfmon agents, where we're going to be collecting metrics like the CPU utilization, disk or memory. But this can also be metrics coming from a database and so on. So there's metrics that we can bring into the portal with our own monitoring agents as well if you're not using an APM. And then lastly, I'm going to run this immediately, but we can also set the execution time to run daily, weekly, or at a specific time. And this is also where we can hook into the API and have an external service trigger the execution of load tests. Say that we want to trigger a load test before we make a deployment with our CI or CD tool. That would be done using the API. So rather than going through the spool up this test, let's actually jump over to a set of results that we have already. So here I'm actually comparing two load test instances against each other. You can see that with the blue and the black lines in these charts here. And so essentially, we have the current test that we're comparing against a historical snapshot of one of our application builds. And we have important metrics that we're going to bring in from an overview level, like the performance knee of our throughput and transaction rates. So in a perfect world, we'd expect these rates to continue up and to the right. But we can see that we reach our performance knee here, and so we can look just behind this curve for perhaps where slowdowns are happening or failures are perhaps happening, as we can see from our failure rate down here in this chart. In addition to the charts, these can be customized. This is just a layout that we've come to recommend from our experience of key metrics from a load test. But beyond these charts, we're also going to bring out statistics. So I can compare this test to a previous version of the instance of a load test from the statistics pane as well. Going beyond the overview, I can drill down into the result details of a load test. So here I'm seeing the timings of the different page loads, or these could be different steps in an API transaction or something like that. Over the time frame of the test, we can see that we're ramping up to 700 users here, and as a matter of fact, we're seeing some high response times coming through at the end of this test. I can continue to drill down to the error level. So here I have that same test at this concurrency level, and I can see where the errors are occurring, and I can see, yes, they're actually focused here towards the end of the test. That correlates well. And I can drill down into all of the error profiles that we collect and look into the logs from the load agent's perspective, showing all the requests and responses coming back from each particular call to troubleshoot. If you're not going to go into every particular call from outside-in perspective, we also have an inside-out using our integrations like AppDynamics here. So here I have all my business transactions related to the demo application that we're testing against, and I can click into them here. Let me pick a business transaction and then drill down into that in AppDynamics. You can see that we're going to pull out all of the transaction snapshots related to that over the course of the test. I can look at normal or error snapshots and then drill down into those into AppDynamics. And from here, we'll build a bridge essentially from Apica load test into AppDynamics, where we continue to drill down and troubleshoot those calls. Lastly, that I think is really important from a reporting standpoint is going to be the client-side monitoring. So here are the runs of the client-side monitors that we're kicking off, and we can go in and view the screenshots by clicking on this link here, or inspecting the waterfall of what the user experience looked like over the course of the test. I'd say that's a pretty packed introduction to load testing and load testing with Apica. So please join us again in the future where we can get into scripting and the other facets of load testing with Apica. Thanks for your time.